You first see it burning at dawn. A German Panzer IV sits on the edge of a Norman hedgerow, its engine compartment split open, flames climbing steadily into the morning air. The crew is gone, no bodies nearby, just the wreckage of a machine that until very recently was supposed to be unstoppable. For years, this was the rule of armored warfare in Europe. German tanks advance, everyone else reacts. The Blitzkrieg had taught the world that lesson in Poland, reinforced it in France, etched it into memory in the early years of the war. German armored doctrine is aggressive, coordinated, and confident. Tanks lead, infantry follows. Anti-tank guns scramble to survive long enough to fire a few desperate shots. That is how it is supposed to go, and for most of the war it does. The Panzer divisions believe in it. German commanders train for it. Allied soldiers fear it. The very silhouette of a German tank cresting a ridge has become shorthand for defeat. So when Allied anti-tank crews are deployed, they are taught a simple truth. You are defensive by nature. You wait, you react, you survive if you can. But what you are looking at now, this burning Panzer at first light, does not fit the rule. It was not destroyed by a desperate last stand. It was not ambushed by chance. It was not overwhelmed by superior armor. It was anticipated. The German tank drove exactly where someone predicted it would drive. It exposed itself exactly when someone expected it to. And when it did, multiple Allied guns fired at once, not in panic but in sequence. This was not improvisation, this was training. For years, Allied instructors had run exercises that many frontline soldiers quietly dismissed as unrealistic. Map problems, sand table drills, rehearsed kill zones that assumed German tanks would behave predictably, almost mechanically. Real war, everyone believed, would never be that neat. Except now, in the summer of 1944, German tanks are lighting up across the countryside in precisely those places. And the men who understand why are the ones who paid attention when everyone else stopped listening. Because in 1944, one overlooked training tool quietly flips the balance of armored combat, and men like Lieutenant Sid Radley Walters are about to prove that German armor is not invincible at all. You are 21 years old, and you already know the Germans are supposed to be better at this than you. Sid Radley Walters is young, sharp-eyed, and already hardened by experience most men twice his age will never face. Born in Montreal, raised in a country that teaches patience before aggression, he is not shaped by Blitzkrieg mythology. He is shaped by preparation. By the time he reaches Normandy with the Sherbrooke Fusiliers, he has spent years training, not just driving tanks, but thinking about how tanks move through terrain. Roads, gaps, villages, hedgerows, crossroads. The British and Canadians have spent the war doing something the Germans initially mocked, obsessing over training scenarios, endless map exercises, repetitive rehearsals, artificial problems that assume the enemy will behave according to doctrine. German officers pride themselves on initiative and improvisation. Allied instructors, by contrast, emphasize patterns. Where would a panzer company move if ordered to counterattack? Which roads support weight? Which fields offer hull-down positions? Where do tanks have to go? Radley Walters absorbs this mindset early. To him, it is not abstract theory. It is logic. Now it matters. By June 1944, Normandy is a battlefield that punishes armor. The bocage, the thick hedgerows, restrict movement, funnel tanks into narrow lanes, and eliminate sweeping maneuvers. German tanks cannot roam freely. They must choose paths, and paths can be predicted. The Germans still believe in their rule. When Allied forces break out from the beaches, German armored units counterattack the same way they always have, by massing tanks and driving them into the gap. They believe speed and shock will still decide the fight. What they do not fully grasp is that Allied anti-tank doctrine has evolved quietly in classrooms and training fields far from the front. Guns are no longer placed singly. Fire is no longer independent. Targets are no longer engaged on sight. Instead, anti-tank units are trained to wait, to let the lead tank pass, to focus fire on flanks, to destroy command vehicles first, to turn a column into a burning traffic jam. Radley Walters understands that tanks do not just fight other tanks. They fight terrain, they fight time, they fight predictability. And in Normandy, German armor is about to lose all three. As his unit moves forward, the tension is constant. German Panthers and Tigers still outgun and out-armor Allied Shermans. One mistake means instant death. Yet Radley Walters does not feel helpless. Because for the first time, reality is beginning to resemble the exercises everyone once dismissed. And the next engagement will prove it. The sound comes first. A low mechanical growl, barely audible at the edge of perception, carried through hedgerows thick with leaves and dust. You have learned to recognize it instinctively, the uneven, heavy vibration of German tank engines moving at low speed. Radley Walters does not raise his voice. He does not rush. He raises one hand, clenched into a fist, and the Shermans around him freeze in place. Engines idle, turrets stop traversing. You wait. This is the part every soldier hates, the waiting. Your senses stretch outward, straining for confirmation that what you think is coming is actually real. Sweat runs down your spine beneath your jacket. The smell of fuel and hot oil hangs in the air. Then you see it. A Panther's nose appears at the bend in the sunken lane, its gun tube cutting through foliage first, followed by the angular slope of its glacis plate. It moves slowly, confidently, exactly as German doctrine prescribes. Lead tank forward, infantry trailing behind, spacing tight enough for mutual support. Radley Walters does not fire, he lets it come. 100 yards, 90, 80. The Panther clears the hedgerow, its commander scans left, then right, binoculars rising. He sees nothing, no movement, no threat. Behind it, a second tank rolls forward. This is the moment training warned you about. Do not shoot the first tank. The instinct screams at you to pull the trigger, to kill the lead vehicle before it kills you. But training drills into you a different truth. The first tank is bait. The second and third tanks are the real targets. Radley Walters waits until the column commits. The third tank enters the lane. Now, he drops his hand. 3 Shermans fire almost simultaneously. The sound is deafening at this range. Armor-piercing rounds slam into steel with a flat, brutal crack. One shot strikes the second Panther square in the side hull. Another punches into the third tank's turret ring. The column locks instantly. The lead tank tries to pivot, but the narrow lane traps it. The rear tanks halt, engines revving, crews shouting over radios now filled with overlapping panic. This is not a duel. It is an execution. Radley Walters orders his gunner to shift aim, not at the burning tank, but past it, toward the command vehicle now frantically reversing. Another shot. The Panther's turret jerks, then stops. Black smoke pours from the rear deck. Inside the German column, doctrine collapses in real time. Tanks are trained to advance, not retreat through wreckage. There is no room to maneuver. German gunners fire back blindly. One shell slams into a hedgerow, showering dirt and leaves over your turret. Another whistles overhead, close enough to make you flinch. But their fire is uncoordinated. They cannot see you. You are firing from positions selected days earlier. Positions chosen not for visibility but for geometry. Angles, crossfires, overlapping arcs that trap armor exactly where it must go. Radley Walters feels the shock of impact as a German round glances off his Sherman's frontal plate. The tank rocks violently. For half a second, you are certain this is it. Then nothing. He does not hesitate. Next target. Another shot. Another hit. Within minutes, 5, maybe 6, the lane is impassable. 4 German tanks burn nose to tail, flames licking through open hatches. Ammunition cooking off with sharp internal detonations. German infantry scatters, pressed flat into ditches by machine gun fire they never expected to face. The engagement is over before it fully registers as a fight. And this is not an isolated incident. Across Normandy, similar scenes unfold. German armor advances according to doctrine, only to find itself funneled into kill zones anticipated weeks earlier during training exercises that once seemed irrelevant. Allied anti-tank guns hold fire until engagement ranges drop below 500 yards. Tank crews coordinate instead of dueling individually. Targets are prioritized. Command tanks first, then mobility kills, then destruction. German commanders report something deeply unsettling. Their tanks are not being surprised by chance. They are being waited for. And for the first time in the war, German armored units begin to hesitate, not because they lack courage, but because they no longer understand the battlefield. They advance expecting reaction. Instead, they find preparation. The most dangerous moment comes at dusk. Radley Walters receives reports of heavier armor moving toward his sector. Panthers, possibly Tigers. This time, the Germans adjust. They deploy infantry screens. They probe cautiously. This is where the system is supposed to fail. Training scenarios cannot account for adaptation. Doctrine cannot predict every move, but the terrain still dictates everything. The German tanks must cross an open field to reach the road network beyond. There is no alternative route that supports their weight. Radley Walters positions his Shermans at the field's edge, hull down, guns already laid. Range markers are memorized. 900 yards, 700, 500. German tanks open fire first. Shells crash into the ground short of your position, throwing fountains of dirt into the air. One round slams into a Sherman to your left, tearing through its side armor. The tank erupts, a sudden violent bloom of fire. For a moment, fear surges. This is what the Germans do best. This is where their superior guns should dominate. Radley Walters forces his voice steady. Hold. The tanks keep coming. 400 yards, 300. Now the German armor presents its flanks as it crests uneven ground, adjusting alignment, exactly as the training diagrams predicted. Fire. Every gun speaks. At this range, penetration is almost guaranteed. A Panther shudders as a round tears through its side plate. Another loses a track, slewing sideways, blocking the advance behind it. German return fire intensifies, but it is chaotic. Smoke obscures targets. Radio traffic overwhelms command nets. Within minutes, the field becomes a wreckage of twisted steel and burning fuel. The Germans withdraw under cover of smoke, leaving behind machines they cannot recover. For Radley Walters, there is no triumph in the moment, only relief, only the realization that something fundamental has shifted. This was not luck. This was not courage alone. This was the delayed payoff of years spent rehearsing battles no one believed would ever unfold this cleanly. If you find this kind of forgotten military detail as fascinating as we do, we'd be honored if you'd hit that subscribe button. We believe these stories of preparation, discipline, and quiet tactical genius deserve to be told. And by subscribing, you help ensure they aren't forgotten. The Germans will fight on. They always do. But after Normandy, German armored reports change tone. Where once there was confidence, there is caution. Where there was speed, there is delay. Because the enemy they face now does not merely react, it predicts. And prediction, when paired with discipline, is lethal. The Germans do not lose Normandy because they run out of tanks. They lose it because their tanks stop behaving the way they were designed to behave. In the weeks after those early engagements, German armored commanders begin filing reports that read nothing like the confident after-action summaries of earlier campaigns. The language shifts. The tone tightens. They describe unexpectedly coordinated anti-tank fire. They complain of premeditated kill zones. They note that Allied units seem to know where German armor will appear before it arrives. What they do not say, what they cannot quite admit, is that the battlefield itself has turned against them. German armored doctrine depends on freedom of maneuver. Tanks are meant to move fast, to exploit gaps, to overwhelm before defenses can organize. That system worked when the enemy reacted slower than the attack unfolded. But now the Allies are no longer reacting. They are waiting. German tank units begin to hesitate at crossroads. Columns slow, bunching up as commanders search for alternate routes that do not exist. Engineers are called forward to breach hedgerows under fire. Infantry screens grow thicker, reducing speed and coordination. Every adjustment costs time. Every delay gives Allied gunners more opportunity to prepare. What German commanders do not know is that this outcome was predicted years earlier in training halls and classrooms, by instructors who had no battlefield glory, no medals, no dramatic last stands. Men who taught repetition, geometry, patience. Those instructors understood something fundamental. Tanks are slaves to terrain, and in Normandy, terrain is king. Radley Walters and officers like him exploit this mercilessly. Engagements are no longer isolated clashes, but parts of a broader system. Anti-tank guns are positioned to deny roads. Shermans are used less as brawlers and more as mobile firing points. Infantry coordinates closely, marking likely approaches and fallback routes. The Germans still possess superior armor in many cases. Panthers and Tigers still outgun Shermans one-on-one, but this war is no longer fought one-on-one. It is fought by groups who know where you must go. The true impact would not be fully understood until weeks later, when German armored strength in Normandy simply collapses, not from annihilation but from paralysis. Tanks cannot be replaced quickly enough. Recovery crews are driven off. Vehicles disabled, not destroyed, still count as losses when they cannot be retrieved under Allied air dominance. German divisions begin reporting operational readiness numbers that plummet alarmingly fast: 50%, 35%, 20%. The tanks exist on paper. They no longer exist at the front. This changes everything. Allied advances accelerate not because resistance disappears, but because armored counterattacks, the Germans' primary method of restoring the line, fail again and again. Each failure reinforces Allied confidence. Each success validates the training methods once dismissed as theoretical. By late summer, German armor no longer represents shock. It represents risk. And German commanders, for the first time, begin planning operations around avoiding Allied anti-tank traps rather than breaking through them. That is not how Blitzkrieg was meant to work. Sid Radley Walters survives Normandy. Many do not. Some die in the very engagements that prove the system works. Others are killed later when luck finally runs out. Training does not make you immortal. It only gives you a chance. Radley Walters goes on to fight through France and into the Netherlands, earning a reputation as a disciplined, analytical commander who never mistakes caution for weakness. After the war, he returns home, not as a celebrity, not as a household name, but as a professional soldier who understands what truly changed the battlefield. It was not a miracle weapon. It was not superior courage. It was not a single genius moment. It was preparation. The story matters now because modern war still runs on the same hidden engines. Technology evolves, weapons improve, but outcomes still hinge on whether forces understand patterns or merely react to them. The men who burned inside those German tanks were brave. They followed doctrine that had once made them unstoppable. What defeated them was not surprise, it was anticipation. To this day, armored warfare schools still teach the same core lesson refined in Normandy. Terrain dictates movement, movement creates predictability, and predictability can be killed. If this story moved you, please hit that like button. Every click tells the algorithm this piece of history is worth remembering. We're dedicated to rescuing these forgotten stories from the archives. If you want to join us on this mission, please subscribe and turn on notifications. Where are you watching from? Drop a comment with your city or state and tell us if someone in your family served. Thank you for ensuring that Sid Radley Walters and the men who turned training into survival do not disappear into silence. They deserve to be remembered. The Germans try to relearn the battlefield in real time. They short advances. They probe instead of pushing. They send single tanks forward to draw fire. It does not work. Every adaptation they attempt runs into the same invisible wall. Allied units are no longer improvising. They are executing rehearsed solutions to problems they already solved in training. You feel it in the tempo of combat. Engagements no longer erupt chaotically. They unfold with a grim, almost mechanical rhythm. German armor appears where it has to appear. Allied guns are already laid. Ranges are already known. Escape routes are already denied. Radley Walters experiences this shift most clearly during what should have been a German recovery operation. At dawn, reports arrive of a Panzer group assembling behind a village crossroads, terrain that, on paper, offers the Germans a chance to break through. In earlier years of the war, this would have been decisive ground. But now you understand the geometry. The roads converge. The hedgerows channel movement. The village constrains turning radius. Tanks entering must expose their sides to exit. Radley Walters does not rush reinforcements forward. He does something far more dangerous. He waits. The German column begins to move just after first light. Engines echo between stone walls. Tracks grind across packed earth. Smoke drifts lazily upward, visible for miles. The Germans believe speed will save them. They are wrong. At 600 yards, Allied guns fire not all at once but in sequence. First to stop movement, then to isolate, then to destroy. A lead tank loses its track and blocks the road. A second burns at the intersection. A third reverses into a ditch and cannot climb out. The rest never get a chance. The entire engagement lasts less than 10 minutes. When it ends, the crossroads is impassable. The German unit ceases to exist as a maneuver force, and this keeps happening, not because Allied crews are braver, not because their tanks are better, but because they no longer fight the tank, they fight the route. This is the final failure of German armored doctrine in Normandy. Blitzkrieg assumes movement creates opportunity. In Normandy, movement creates exposure. By the time German command realizes this at the operational level, it is too late to change outcomes. Doctrine cannot be rewritten mid-campaign. Crews cannot be retrained under fire. The collapse is not dramatic. There is no single moment where German armor breaks forever. Instead, it bleeds out across dozens of small, precise engagements, each one shaped by Allied training that once seemed theoretical. And Radley Walters understands something few others articulate at the time. Victory did not come from inspiration. It came from institutional memory, from instructors who insisted that maps mattered, from drills that forced soldiers to imagine enemy decisions, from rehearsals that assumed the enemy would behave logically, even under fire. That assumption turns out to be deadly accurate. Because under pressure, armies do not improvise, they revert. When the war ends, no monument is built to training syllabi. There is no parade for doctrine. Sid Radley Walters returns home carrying memories that do not fit clean narratives. He knows that what saved him and killed others was not heroism in the moment, but discipline before it. He remains in the army for years, shaping future armored training with lessons written in burned steel and narrow lanes. Many of the men who fought beside him never see peace. Their names appear on memorials without footnotes explaining why they survived one engagement and not the next. But their story matters now more than ever, because modern warfare still tempts nations to believe in technological shortcuts, faster systems, smarter weapons, overwhelming shock. Yet the truth remains unchanged. Wars are won by those who understand patterns before contact, by those who prepare for reality rather than myth. German tanks burned in Normandy not because they were obsolete, but because they were predictable. And predictability, once mapped and rehearsed, becomes a death sentence. If this story moved you, please hit that like button. Every click tells the algorithm this piece of history is worth remembering. We're dedicated to rescuing these forgotten stories from the archives. If you want to join us on this mission, Please subscribe and turn on notifications. Where are you watching from? Drop a comment with your city or state and tell us if someone in your family served. Thank you for ensuring that Sid Radley Walters and the countless Allied gunners who turned preparation into survival do not disappear into silence. They deserve to be remembered.